Surprise! What is up, ghouls, gals, and creeps and mutants? This is kind of a long episode coming that I've kind of like teased a little bit at my own personal profile on Facebook. I know how that sounds. I'm aware how that comes off. So let's just pretend that sounded really cool and just like hip and current. And I'm aware I just said hip as well. That being said, today is we've kind of been teasing this that we're going to be doing some kind of small miniature reviews for current movies that come out. So the way we're going to do this is just kind of movies that you guys either request or that we can tell are going to get a lot of buzz but not of a lot of attention. I know it's a really weird way to be like, Matt, how do you know what movie's going to get that? And how do you know it's not going to get that? To be quite honest with you, we don't fully know. However, from just how much we research horror films and how much we research trends and themes, we can kind of take a good educated guess of the ones that are going to be overlooked and not get a lot of attention, even though they get a lot of buzz. And so the one that we're going to kind of start off today that doesn't really fit with this mold, but I'll explain why we're talking about it, is the recent release of The Invisible Man. So if you haven't seen it yet, you obviously know that it's gotten a lot of praise, and we're very late to the game on this one. But we felt that it's kind of fitting because normally when we review any movie on our regular Friday episodes, we're already kind of late to the game with reviewing movies that come out like 4 or 5 years prior ago. We feel that it's kind of fair to do it this way. And because our reviews, again, all biased with this, we feel our reviews kind of are more different than how other critics do. They kind of just do the one review, tell you what it is kind of straight up, why they didn't like it. And so if you know our Friday episodes, you know how we review movies, and that's how we're going to do it with this one. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about The Invisible Man. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to expect. There will be some spoilers here and there. Again, if you've listened to the show for a long time now, you know how we do spoilers. I'll give you a warning of when it's going to be a heavy spoiler that's coming up and how far to skip ahead. This also will be on our YouTube. I am going to, after I get done with this recording, I am going to actually be making sure to put on a video for this on YouTube as well. So going into it, The Invisible Man. So first off, I will tell you my first kind of expectations of this movie and how it changed after I saw it. So first and foremost, I was kind of very hesitant with this movie. I was not really excited for it because out of all the Universal monsters and any monsters in general, I always felt that the Invisible Man was the least terrifying. When you have Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy, and even the Wolfman, I felt like he was kind of like the weakest of all of them. He wasn't as scary, mostly a vigilante character. So there wasn't as much as it just being weird that he's just invisible. That was kind of it. That's why it bored me. So that's why I was really, really kind of nervous going into this movie. I'm like, okay, a lot of people are saying that this is a lot like a Chalamet or Hollow Man, excuse me, with Kevin Bacon. A lot of people are saying that this wasn't as scary as it was. So let's my expectations were set. However, when I came out of the movie, I was absolutely pleasantly surprised. So going into it, The Invisible Man was directed by Leigh Whannell and written by Leigh Whannell, and also the screen story was done by Leigh Whannell. Stars Elizabeth Moss, Oliver Jackson Cohen, and Harriet Dyer. So, what the whole movie is about is when Cecilia's abusive ex takes his own life and leaves her his fortune, she suspects his death was a hoax. As a series of coincidences turn lethal, Cecilia works to prove that she is being hunted by someone nobody can see. So, already, it's touching on some pretty heavy stuff. So one thing I'm going to tell all you ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants before you go into this movie is that if you have if your trigger warnings or anything close to abuse, mental abuse, anything, or in a domestic relationship or any type of relationship in general, just heavy trigger warning. Please take care of yourself when watching this film. I am, however, going to give it that first pro because I want to get it out of the way and talk about it. So the way this movie opens up is that we see Elizabeth Moss in her lavish home with her abusive husband at the time, and she's trying to quietly escape and get rid of him. Not get rid of him, but get herself out of this situation and run. And it is a very, very intense scene. I'm not going to tell you everything about it because I don't want to give away the suspense of it besides what I just already said, but it's a very intense scene and it's very well done. And it actually had me and Cody both on like the edge of our seats, kind of feeling where, is what's happening, because she's trying to escape while he is asleep. And so we're like, when is he going to wake up? When is this going to happen? Like, it's going to happen. And so when it does, it is so well shot and done that even though it's coming, it still gets you. And I love that about it, because there's a way that you can still do jump scares, and this movie, and they can actually be really good for the film, and this movie does it very, very well. Normally cheap jump scares I'm not always a big fan of, because they just go for the like, in your face all of a sudden, or kind of like, the medicine cabinet gets closed and there's someone behind the person kind of scene, where this one is that it knows that it's coming, but the way it executes that scene still will make you jump regardless. And that's why I love it, because it doesn't feel like it's pandering with its scare jumps. I don't feel like it's doing that at all. I feel like, again, it knows who its audience is, and it's only just building on the expectation of trying to impress and trying to show that The Invisible Man can be a scary series. And so I mentioned that it's shot, after, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but so after Elizabeth Moss finally escapes, we see her go and stay with a close friend of hers. Now, this is where the film goes into some very touchy territory. And so what I mean by that is, again, I'm going to come back to the trigger warning of abuse and physical abuse and mental abuse being, taken care when you go into the scene, because it really does show an honest light of what it's like to be a victim of someone who was abusive and how that affects you. And they show kind of one example of like why it works really well, but with how much with how realistic they make it, I thought it was very tasteful the way they did it. So basically we see, Elizabeth Moss's character Cecilia scared to leave the home. She doesn't know where he's going to come from. You don't know where she doesn't know where he's at. She knows something that no one else knows. Obviously by this point she knows that he can go invisible, but no one else knows that, so that's why she's even more paranoid. But even still, her friends trying to, course her, trying to encourage her, hey, just go to the mailbox. That's all you have to do today. And then we can work on something else tomorrow. Just the mailbox itself is a huge achievement. So there's like, you see her just terrified to go out to the mailbox. And so when eventually she does build up the courage to do just that, she walks out to it, opens it, and the man, just a regular jogger, is just walking behind her and triggers her trauma, and she runs right back in. And just me kind of explaining it like that does not make it sound very severe, and I did it that way on purpose, because again, I'm trying to also take care of anyone else who's listening who might be affected in this way. But the way they show it and the way they shot it is very, although it's brutal, it's also kind of refreshing in the sense that it does show an honest light of what domestic abuse does to someone, and just in general what abuse does to someone. And I liked it for that, because we've always said that horror movies are a great medium to talk about very hard to talk about subjects, such as physical abuse. And so this movie does it really well. Like, it shows an honest light. Like, this is what it's like for someone who is coming back from it. And I feel like I'm hitting heavily hard on this. And I think the reason is because it does such an honest light to what abuse is like. I just really kind of want to paint a clear picture of what people are going to get into. And I honestly think this kind of hurt the movie for some critics, because I think when we hear horror, I think we want to be scared, and I don't think we always want a message with it. And that only speaks for some of us, whereas like someone like me, I don't mind a message. I like a message in a horror film. I like a point that it's trying to make. And so going forward from this, though, I'm talking about, how it puts in an honest light and the way it's shot. And really what makes a lot of this movie work is the camera work. A lot of the shots that are done in this movie, because the whole idea is that he's around all the time, but she can't see him. So the camera, what it does a really good job of kind of showing where her focus is at and what she's seeing but no one else can see. And so what's so unnerving is that when she says, he's right there, I know he's there, and it'll pan over to that scene. The way it does it is that And Elizabeth Moth, also credit to her, she sells the scene so well, is that she's seeing something that we're not seeing, and that makes it far more unsettling because we also, as the audience, can't see it. And that's what I love about it. That's what it really started to get to me, because usually I always made the comment, why Paranormal Activity worked, and why the Haunting in Connecticut and so on and so forth worked, is that it is far more terrifying to not be able to see something that is not from this world, that's not human. And so when I went into this movie again, I thought, because knowing that he is human wasn't going to really scare me. But Leonel and Elizabeth Moss did such a good job at putting you in her shoes and making you feel as vulnerable as she does, that all these scenes of him messing with her and her, him making her life a living tragedy, is just so, on point, that I was able to forget that he's a person. I was able to see him as the monster as she portrays him as, and I love it for that, because again, what is the most terrifying monster besides something otherworldly is the person that sleeps right next to you. And so with that, the movie kind of plays out with her trying to believe that after hearing her husband, her ex abusive husband died, that she's trying to get normal again, and I'm saying normal as in a light way. I don't mean normal as like normal, just kind of like back to where she was before all this happened, before all this trauma happened. And so, you see her start to make these improvements, and then all of a sudden stuff starts happening where the Invisible Man himself, Oliver Jackson, is actually leaving around small little clues. And so one of these clues is, coming back to the beginning of the film, this is not a spoiler, but you find out the way that she made him sleep so well is that she gave him sleeping pills. I forget what it was exactly, but when she was trying to escape after that opening scene, she dropped the bottle of pills. He found it, and so Adrian, who is played by Oliver Jackson, leaves pill bottle on her bathroom counter. And that right there, like, is, I give it a pro, because it starts out very small, and you can see Lee Winnell's taken a lot of influence from his supernatural horror films, just like what he's done in Insidious and so on and so forth. And you can see that he's bringing some of that tension of what makes those films so nuts and so tense into this, by just leaving small little things around, and as it slowly escalates, it becomes more intense, more nuts the entire time throughout the film. So, and that's basically what we see is Elizabeth Moss trying to make the case that Adrian is still around, that he is hunting her down, that everyone around her is in danger. And so the way this movie really kind of hits its peak is when they finally believe, that they think that her character Cecilia has gone crazy, and so they take her and they institutionalize her. And so she eventually finds a way to beat Adrian at his own game. And so this is the part where I am going to go into the spoiler section. So if you don't want this to spoil anything for you, and you still want to see the movie, I'm going to tell you right now to go ahead about 2 minutes into the recording, and that'll be a spoiler going in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's the spoiler. So what ends up happening is that she's at this mental hospital, and she lures Adrian in. We also find out at the same time that his brother has been working with her to try and get her to let me say it like this. So basically, her brother is the attorney for Adrian's brother is his attorney, and Elizabeth Mott's character Cecilia is the sole right and heir to his fortune, and so she has to stay away from making any crimes, getting in trouble. She basically just has to be a functioning citizen. But because she gets institutionalized, he's just like, we can make this all go away. All you have to do is just forgive Adrian and have his baby. Because we find out that she is pregnant with his child as well. And so the brother's like, if you want this to go away, have the baby. And so, Elizabeth Moss, Cecilia, the badass that she is, just like, fuck you, basically. I'm kind of paraphrasing, obviously. But she's like, fuck you. And so she steals a pen from him, lures Adrian into her shower, and just like stabs the living shit out of him. Adrian does survive this, and so the way this ends, the way we get our resolution through this film, is that she ends up meeting back up with Adrian and actually sitting down and talking with him because she finds out that he is still alive because, well, he stabbed her. And so what ends up happening at this point is prior to the scene, we also find out that the brother also has another invisible suit and is also terrorizing her. So basically, Adrian and his brother are terrorizing Elizabeth Moss' character Cecilia this entire movie, and that's what's happening. And so she gets back at him by putting on the suit and slitting Adrian's throat. With that in mind, this is now the end of the spoiler. So if you skipped ahead, this is your mark to continue listening safely without having things spoiled from you. I probably should have given myself a little more time because there was more to it than I thought there was going to be. This is just kind of a weird format, trying to keep this under 15 minutes, which I'm already over. But yeah, so kind of bringing this home to you, what are you going to expect with The Invisible Man? What you're going to expect is an honest look at one end of how abusive nature can take effect on someone in a negative way, but you're also introduced a very thrilling, tense movie of when is, Adrian going to reveal himself? When is he going to come out? What is he going to do next to escalate the terrible stuff that he is doing to Cecilia? And so, on one end, I will agree with one criticism about the movie saying that the CG isn't as good as it could be. I do agree with that. There's some parts that, when we do see the invisible suit, you can tell it's CG. I still like the suit because I have a little bit of trypophobia, and if you don't know what that is, but want to know what that is, trypophobia is basically you have a phobic nature of irregular patterns, and so the suit is just filled with that, and like there's little kind of like these little honeycombs throughout the entire suit, and within each honeycomb is a little camera, and so I love the suit for that because a good horror movie slasher monster or anything really kind of touches on a weird phobia. And so that's what I love about it because you feel uncomfortable just looking at the suit the entire time. But coming back to it, you're expecting this is the type of movie you're going to get. You're going to get a thriller, not as much as a hold down the seat of your pants, in your face, terrifying run. It's a thriller throughout and through. It is a horror thriller, and it's a very, very competent and good horror thriller. And it definitely deserves far more love. If you have someone in your life that is telling you that it's overrated or anything, I think they just like to shit on popular movies because they're popular. Because honestly, this movie changed my perspective of The Invisible Man being a serious force of fear and horror, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I will watch it again, and as soon as I can, I'm going to make my wife watch it as well and get scared as well. So check out The Invisible Man today. I know it's gotten a theatrical release digitally for a lot of streaming sites, so if you need something to watch and you have the money to spare, check it out. It is totally worth your time. I'm sure it's going to be available on, Amazon as well after the whole theatrical release. I think it is just permanently on there now, in general. So that could just be me kind of misunderstanding the information. But yeah, if you liked this episode, if you like that we're doing this mini reviews, and there's a movie that you want us to see that is current and new, but you haven't seen and you want us to review and tell you what you're going to get with it, let us know. Give us an email. Shoot us an email, punkrockhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. With that being said, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, we're going to keep trying to come out with more bonus content as much as we can. Thank you so much for being so amazing and so supportive and telling all of your friends, family, and everyone about us. Thank you for continuing to listen to us. From the bottom of our hearts, you mean so much to us. Shout out again to everyone that works on the show. Shout out to our music producer, Big Boot Studios. Shout out to our sketch animator, Freddie Gonzalez. They both have their links in the episode notes below, so please follow them, give them some love as well. On our YouTube, we have more animated sketches. We have a new one called Emo Palpatine. I'm sure you'll know what it'll be about if you listen to our a few Friday episodes ago. Check it out. It's a hilarious episode. That being said, ghouls, guys, scoops, and mutants, thank you again. You know where to follow us. You know where to keep connect with us. And again, let me know if there's a movie you want us to watch, to review before you watch it. All right, everyone. Be safe, take care of each other, and keep that social distancing at a fair length.